The recovery chip in Marcus Thompson's pocket represented 2 years of sobriety, but it couldn't erase 10 years of absence from his son's life. What started as Ellen's regular Thursday show was about to become the most powerful story of second chances, redemption, and a father meeting the son he had never held that television had ever witnessed. 38-year-old Marcus sat nervously in the front row of Ellen's studio, his hands shaking slightly as he clutched a worn photo of a baby he'd only seen through prison glass. Beside him sat his sponsor, David Rodriguez, who had guided Marcus through the darkest days of recovery and encouraged him to reach out to Ellen's show when other attempts to contact his son had failed. Behind them sat Linda Martinez, Jake's foster mother, who had raised the boy from infancy and made the difficult decision to facilitate this reunion. She carried with her videos that Jake had made, asking about his father, recorded messages that had moved her to tears and convinced her that this meeting needed to happen. Ellen was finishing her opening monologue when she noticed Marcus in the audience, immediately drawn to the man's obvious anxiety and the intensity with which he stared at the photo in his hands. "I can see we have someone very special with us today," Ellen said, approaching their section. Marcus looked up with eyes that carried 10 years of regret, shame, and desperate hope for a relationship he'd never been able to build. "Ellen, I don't even know if he knows I exist." Ellen knelt down beside Marcus's chair, sensing immediately that this man was carrying a burden of guilt that had shaped his entire recovery journey. "Marcus, Linda wrote to me about Jake and about the 10 years you've been apart." David placed a supportive hand on Marcus's shoulder, having witnessed his friend's transformation from broken addict to dedicated father-in-waiting. "Marcus has been clean for 2 years and has worked every day to become the man his son deserves. He's completed his GED, vocational training, and has a steady job," David continued with obvious pride in his sponsee's dedication. "Everything he's done has been for the day he could meet Jake." Ellen felt her heart respond to this story of redemption, driven by paternal love. "Marcus, can you tell me what happened 10 years ago?" Marcus's voice broke as he prepared to share the most shameful period of his life with millions of viewers. "I was arrested for drug possession 3 days before Jake was born. I was in prison when my son came into this world," Marcus continued, his pain evident in every word. "I missed his first breath, his first cry, everything that mattered." Ellen's expression grew compassionate as she understood the devastating timing of this father's incarceration. "Marcus, how long were you in prison?" 5 years for drug charges, but by the time I got out, Jake's mother had died from an overdose," Marcus explained, tears streaming down his face. "He was already in foster care, and I was still using." Linda leaned forward, adding crucial context about Jake's early years and her decision to become his guardian. "I was Jake's social worker when he was placed in care as an infant. Marcus tried to get visitation rights when he was released, but he was still struggling with addiction." Linda continued with understanding rather than judgment. "I couldn't risk Jake's safety and stability." Ellen stood up slowly, processing the impossible situation that had kept father and son apart for a decade. "Marcus, what made you finally get clean?" 2 years ago, I saw a photo of Jake at a school event in the newspaper," Marcus replied, his voice gaining strength as he spoke about his turning point. "He looked so much like me, but he was smiling, and I realized he was happy without me. That's when I knew I had to get sober, not to disrupt his life, but to become worthy of being part of it." Marcus continued with the wisdom of hard-won recovery. David nodded, remembering the day Marcus had committed to real change. Ellen felt inspired by this father's selfless motivation for recovery. "Marcus, tell me about the last 2 years. I've been in recovery, working as a construction foreman, and going to parenting classes even though I don't have a child to parent," Marcus explained, his dedication evident. "I wanted to be ready for this day." Linda added details about Marcus's consistent efforts to prove his worthiness as a father. "He sent birthday cards every year, even though he wasn't sure Jake would receive them. He's also been putting money into a college fund for Jake, never missing a payment." Linda continued, her voice filled with respect for Marcus's commitment. Ellen was moved by this father's dedication, despite having no guarantee of reunion. "Marcus, what would you say to Jake if you could see him today?" Ellen asked, understanding that this moment might be approaching. "What would you want him to know?" I would tell him that missing his first 10 years is my greatest regret, but that every day of sobriety has been for him, Marcus replied with absolute sincerity. I would tell him that I'm proud to be his father, even if I haven't earned the right to be called dad. Ellen felt tears forming as she processed the depth of love and remorse this man carried. Marcus, what if I told you that Jake knows about you? Marcus's eyes widened with hope and terror as he processed what Ellen might be suggesting. He knows I exist? Linda nodded, confirming what she'd shared with Ellen's producers, but not yet with Marcus. Jake has been asking about his father for 2 years. When he turned 8, I felt he was old enough to understand the truth about his parents. Linda continued, her voice gentle. I showed him photos and told him about your recovery. Ellen's excitement built as she prepared to share news that would change Marcus's world. Marcus, Jake didn't just ask about you. He's been following your recovery. Linda has been showing him videos you've made for Narcotics Anonymous meetings about your journey. Ellen continued, watching Marcus's face transform with amazement. Jake has seen you speak about wanting to be a good father. Marcus gasped audibly, overwhelmed by the revelation that his son had been witnessing his recovery journey. He's been watching me get better? David smiled. Having been part of encouraging Marcus to speak publicly about his recovery specifically, so Jake might someday see it. Every speech you've given has been for him. Ellen walked toward the wings of her stage, her heart racing as she prepared to facilitate one of the most emotional father-son meetings ever. Marcus, Jake is here today. The studio fell completely silent, as everyone understood they were about to witness something sacred. The first meeting between a father and the son he'd never held. Marcus stood up on shaking legs, his entire body trembling with 10 years of anticipation. Slowly, 10-year-old Jake Martinez walked onto Ellen's stage, a beautiful boy with his father's eyes and a shy smile that lit up when he saw Marcus. He stopped a few feet away, both father and son staring at each other with wonder and recognition. Dad? Jake whispered, his voice small but clear as he addressed the man he'd only seen in photos and videos. You look just like your pictures. Marcus fell to his knees, overwhelmed by hearing his son call him dad for the first time in his life. Jake, my son, you're even more beautiful than I imagined. Ellen watched from the side as father and son approached each other with the careful reverence of people meeting their missing piece. The audience held their breath as 10 years of separation prepared to end. Jake walked slowly toward his kneeling father, his young face serious with the weight of this moment. I watched your video, Dad, he said with remarkable maturity for a 10-year-old. You did? Marcus asked, his voice breaking as he realized his son had witnessed his recovery testimony. What did you think? Jake stopped directly in front of his father, looking down at the man who had fought so hard to become worthy of this moment. I'm proud of you, he said simply. Those 4 words shattered every wall Marcus had built around his heart, and he began sobbing with 10 years of suppressed emotion.
You're proud of me?
You got better for me, Jake replied with the wisdom of a child who understood sacrifice. Mama Linda showed me the videos where you talk about wanting to be my dad. Ellen was crying openly as she witnessed this profound moment of acceptance and forgiveness from a child to his recovering father. The audience was equally emotional, understanding they were seeing the power of redemption through a child's eyes. Jake stepped closer and placed his small hand on Marcus's face, wiping away his father's tears. You don't have to cry, Dad. You're here now. Marcus wrapped his arms around his son for the first time, holding the child he dreamed about every day for 10 years. Jake, I promise I'll never leave you again. I know, Jake replied with absolute trust, melting into his father's embrace. Mama Linda says you work really hard to stay healthy for me. Ellen approached the reunited father and son, her own emotions making it difficult to speak. Jake, how does it feel to finally meet your dad? Like getting the best birthday present ever, Jake replied, still nestled in Marcus's arms. Except it's not my birthday. Marcus laughed through his tears, amazed by his son's wisdom and acceptance. Every day with you will feel like a birthday to me. Linda approached the reunion with obvious emotion, having facilitated this moment while protecting Jake throughout the process. Marcus, Jake has something to show you. Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn photo, the same picture Marcus had been carrying, showing baby Jake. Mama Linda gave me this so I could remember what I looked like when you had to go away. Marcus stared at the photo that had sustained them both through years of separation. You've been carrying my picture too? Every day Jake confirmed with the loyalty of a son who had never stopped believing in his father. I wanted to remember what it felt like to be your baby. Ellen felt goosebumps as she witnessed this demonstration of the unbreakable bond between father and son despite years apart. The audience was sobbing collectively, understanding they were seeing love triumph over addiction, incarceration, and time. Ellen had been working behind the scenes on support that would help this family build their relationship safely. Marcus, Jake, I have news that will help you reconnect properly. She walked to her desk and returned with documents that would facilitate their reunion while maintaining Jake's stability. Linda has agreed to supervise visitation that will gradually increase as you build your relationship. Both Marcus and Jake were thrilled by the opportunity to spend time together while ensuring Jake's continued security. We get to see each other regularly? Jake asked with excitement. Every weekend, Ellen confirmed, and we're providing family counseling to help you both navigate building a father-son relationship. Marcus was overwhelmed by the support being offered to help him succeed as a father. But there's more. Ellen continued, clearly moved by their story and determined to support their success. Marcus, your employer has agreed to flexible scheduling so you can attend all of Jake's school events and activities. Jake looked up at his father with excitement about shared future experiences. You'll come to my soccer games? Every single one, Marcus promised, his voice filled with commitment to being present for his son's life. I'll be the loudest dad in the stands. Ellen was amazed by the immediate connection between father and son, despite their years apart. Jake, what do you want to do with your dad first? I want to show him my room and my trophies, Jake replied with the enthusiasm of a child sharing his world, and I want him to meet my friends. Marcus was overwhelmed by his son's eagerness to include him in his established life. You want your friends to meet me? I want to tell everyone that my dad fought really hard to come back to me, Jake said with obvious pride in his father's recovery. Ellen felt tears streaming down her face at this child's mature understanding of his father's journey. As the segment continued, Ellen learned more about both Marcus's recovery and Jake's remarkable resilience. The boy had thrived despite his challenging start, excelling in school and sports while maintaining hope for his father's return. Jake has always believed his dad would get better and come back, Linda explained with admiration for the child's faith. He's never spoken about Marcus with anger, only with hope. Marcus had spent 2 years not only maintaining sobriety but also learning about child development and parenting. I read every book about being a good father that I could find. Ellen was impressed by both the father's dedication and the son's wisdom. Marcus, what do you want people to know about recovery and second chances? I want them to know that recovery isn't just about getting clean. It's about becoming the person your loved ones deserve, Marcus replied with hard-won wisdom. Jake deserved better than who I was, so I had to become better. Jake added his perspective with the insight of someone who had waited patiently for his father's return. Sometimes dads need time to learn how to be good dads. Ellen felt privileged to witness this story of redemption, patience, and family healing. Jake, do you have any advice for other kids whose parents are in recovery? Don't give up on them, Jake replied with remarkable maturity. My dad needed time to get better, but he was always my dad in his heart. Ellen addressed the audience about the broader implications of what they were witnessing. Marcus and Jake are showing us that it's never too late to be the parent your child needs. As the show reached its conclusion, Ellen reflected on the courage both father and son had shown in embracing this reunion. Today we've seen that love can survive addiction, incarceration, and separation when it's combined with real change and forgiveness. Ellen's closing words that day became an inspiration for families dealing with addiction and incarceration. The greatest gift we can give our children isn't perfection, it's the willingness to fight for the chance to love them better. 6 months later, Marcus and Jake returned to Ellen's show to share their progress in building their father-son relationship. They had spent every weekend together, and their bond had grown stronger with each visit. The most amazing thing, Jake told Ellen during their return visit, is that my dad keeps all his promises now. Marcus had attended every soccer game, school event, and important moment in his son's life. Marcus had become a spokesperson for recovery programs, specifically designed for incarcerated parents, helping other fathers understand the importance of getting clean for their children. His story had inspired legislation improving visitation rights for parents in recovery. Ellen kept the photo Marcus had carried for 10 years framed on her desk. Baby Jake sleeping peacefully, unaware of the journey ahead. Beside it sat a new photo from their reunion, showing the beautiful father-son bond that had survived a decade of separation. The recovery that had seemed impossible when Marcus was at his lowest point had become the foundation for the most beautiful parenting story Ellen had ever witnessed. Their reunion proved that children's capacity for forgiveness, combined with a parent's genuine change, can heal even the deepest wounds, because sometimes the most profound father-son relationships are built not on perfect parenting from the beginning, but on a father's willingness to fight for the right to love his child better. Marcus Thompson had learned that the man he became through recovery was worthy of the son who had waited 10 years to say, "I'm proud of you, Dad."